battling misinformation spreading around the web, inciting community members to rush to particular religious facilities and mosques and churches on the hint or the rumour of some kind of violent activity taking place. Look, it's very dangerous. We want to work with the Commonwealth Government on shutting down some of the accounts that cause particular trouble overnight, but I'm not going to lie about it.
Now, this is because when the story comes out, before the media can fully figure out who did it, you have these partisan takes on it. Oh, it was immigrants, or it was this religious group, and then you have these agitators online who get their corresponding followers up in arms. This is why I believe it's, I think, prudent here just to suspend judgment on everything, because people are being triggered by mainstream media and alt media. But there's this theme here where alt media is constantly putting its foot in their mouth. They will comment on something, there will be reactions, and then they're wrong. This happened with that shooting at Joel Osteen's church. Sadly, he wasn't there at the time. But, I mean, it would have been a cool plot twist. But when they were explaining the shooting that happened at this church, there were reports on the right wing that, oh, this was another trans shooter. And trans shooters are to the right wing what bowl cut Nazi shooters are to the left. It's just this new threat, and bowl cut shooters with MAGA hats weren't scaring right wingers. So they brought out this new threat, and they're like, oh, this person shooting up the church is a trans shooter. Turns out she wasn't. Well, that made a lot of people look like they were just jumping to conclusions, which they are. You know, and it's, they're not. What we're doing here is, when I say like auto hoaxing, or we are preemptively just suspecting everything that they put out there. But one point here is the term auto hoaxer was a pejorative to criticize those who were rushing to judge it as fake, even though they were constantly right. And we appropriated that term. But we're not really rushing to judge. We're not prejudged. And this is another topic for tomorrow, but we're not prejudging it as fake. We're suspending judgment and then deciding. Big difference. Big difference. But the people who are responding to these things as though they are true are auto believers, whether it's a mainstream line they believe, or if they're automatically believing some alternative influencer's perspective. If they're automatically believing it, not suspending judgment, they're programmed. And so this is basically the government reacting against the alternative programming, and it's all by design.
Or sugarcoat it, it's very difficult to maintain community cohesion when outright lies are spread within the community, inciting the worst fears of particularly young people. That's what we hope to do. Several of the sites were actually given to us by religious community leaders this afternoon in a meeting that I had in Sydney, where Muslim leaders expressed to us concern about some web pages that were just spreading misinformation. Commonwealth laws, but
So there you go. You can see where this is heading. And let me bring up something related. And this is again about the church stabbing. Bondi Junction highlights X's failure to moderate. So the stabbing is one thing, but we're actually talking about this other thing, the response to the stabbing. Here's something else that was posted by Lean Dion, and this has to do with the director of Civil War. And I'm likely going to watch that movie, either today or tomorrow. This is from the Hollywood Reporter, posted in our Discord server. Thanks again to Lean Dion for this one. He said, quote, "When I worked on Ex Machina, which was about AI, people sometimes used to use the word prescient or predictive to describe the film." Now, we're in the middle of this broader conversation about predictive programming, where you have one camp of people, and this is the dominant because this is how it's always been. This is like the explanation that has just gone unchallenged until recently, until we challenged it. But the explanation is there's predictive programming because the writers are tapping into the zeitgeist, or they're channeling it, or there's some kind of higher power, or there's AI. But most of the explanations about the predictive nature of films point to some kind of magical explanation, a gremlin, something we can't explain. It's beyond us. We're too dumb to figure it out. It's beyond man. I love that one. It's beyond man. Okay, well, the sheer volume of it suggests it's systemic. It is pervasive because it is the standard operating procedure, and clearly the entertainment media is not separate from the news media. It runs narratives that are contiguous, unending, weaving between fiction and, quote, reality on the news, and then back into fiction. they're stringing us along, merging the two worlds. This is how they control our minds. Thank you very much. Appreciate the support there. Multi C Zero Dagger. Now, again, so what I'm just suggesting here is that these actors, I mean these writers, for example, the writer of writers and directors, but the writer who did Leave the World Behind had a very similar thing to say about how his film was predictive. And then, well, how his book was predictive. His book was predictive of 2020, in his view. Then the movie comes out in 2023, and it's predictive of everything that has followed it. And you may say it's coincidence, 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 could not have been planned. Well, no, it has Obama's fingerprints all over it. It has the leftist CRT ideology, the 1619 Project, all over it. The movie was about America's racial reckoning. 1619 colliding with 1776, worldview warfare, everything shuts down, and then it goes into, quote, civil war. And why that's significant is that that movie, which was chock full of predictive programming as we predicted it would be, is now being followed by Civil War, which just came out, which we can presume is going to be prescient and predictive. Now, the reason why these things are prescient and predictive is because they are connected. It is continuous. And if you have a compartmentalized mind and you cannot comprehend because you're in a box that there is no meaningful distinction between the news and the entertainment and the video games and everything else, then you're going to see these things as inexplicable coincidences or only explainable by introducing something supernatural. But what puts it all into context is this: they're writing the news in advance. Reality happens, it's pretty mundane, but all these special events that steer us towards these mass narratives, these things are written in advance. Our history is largely part of a pre-existing program, what I call a metascript. And they act it out on the world stage. Does this sound far-fetched? I just described every single psyop, every fake shooting, every single psychological operation with terrorism where it involves actors and drills and simulations. Those all have scripts. Those are all stories. And if they're wiring it in to the news and plugging it in as though it's real, like let's say the Boston bombing, you schedule this thing, you have your actors, you do your special effects, now it's in the news. Yeah, that was a pre-written bit of history. You wrote that day in advance. So when I'm suggesting that they're writing our news in advance and predictive programming is evidence of this, that they are news bending, yeah, it's to me it's self-evident at this point. That is the most likely explanation for pervasive and accurate predictive programming. You would not have this accuracy if it was artists and writers just tapping into something mystical. You wouldn't have this accuracy in any other way. And it's beyond predictive, where it's way in the past and you're drawing from a lot of sources, because you could make the case for fallacious reasoning. Like anybody right now could take Nostradamus and apply it to 2024. It's a sharpshooter fallacy. But when it comes to what we're analyzing, a lot of the time it's concurrent, it's real time. The Netflix movie comes out, it happens the next day. Like this one-to-one relationship is more indicative of how these things are actually running concurrently. Why? To keep us entrained to their world stage model. So again, here we have the director of Civil War describing his previous film as being prescient and predictive. He said, "I feel slightly embarrassed when people say that because at the time I wrote it, there was already a huge debate happening about it. I think if all the topics in Civil War have been part of a huge public debate for years and years, growing in volume and awareness. I thought everybody understands these terms at this point, and I felt compelled to write about it. If you cast your mind back to when I wrote this in June 4 years ago, there was an election coming, and we were dealing with COVID. The same conversation as now, identical. That's where it came from." Fascinating. Well, I'll check out his Civil War movie, and we'll dig into it. From what I've gathered, and I have to go see it, it seems like it may be something to target the left, scare the left about MAGA. And this is kind of intriguing because previous to the last election cycle, 2019, we had the Joker movie, which was certainly about a leftist uprising. The Joker masks, kill the police, kill the rich, that whole thing. And Joker represents the left, Batman is the right when you look at how they merge these with the world stage dramas. And so this movie, if it accentuates right-wing terror, then it would be very predictive of what we should expect this summer. That maybe the summer of 2020 is going to be kind of mirrored this summer, but coming from the other side of the political spectrum. And speaking of the summer of 2020, Gage Grosskreutz, now named Paul Prediger, is giving public. He's out in public. This is strange. He changed his name from Gage Grosskreutz because we made fun of it so much and called it Gage Grossarm. So now he's Gage Grossarm, turns it into Paul Prediger because he's going undercover. So apparently he's undercover with this new name. Then he gets hit by a car. And after he gets hit by a car, he goes on the news and talks about how he got hit by a car. And I'm like, okay, you just blew your cover. Well, now he's giving speeches at college campuses to counter the damage of Kyle Rittenhouse. So there's kind of this back and forth. I don't know if they've been on the same campus at the same time, but he's at Ohio campus protesting against Kyle. And Kyle has become kind of a right-wing clown, sort of a wannabe. Maybe I kind of liken him to Stephen Stephen Crowder. There's something Stephen Crowder-ish about him. But yeah, Gage Grosskreutz is out there giving speeches, and we'll see where that goes. I would like a rematch between Gage Grosskreutz slash Paul Prediger and Kyle Rittenhouse. All right, let me catch up on comments. Unmeditated Mind says, have you had a chance to look into the audio files for Leave the World Behind, Tim? I just saw a couple. There's an opening track on the movie that has to do with a blackout, but no, I need to dig deeper. It's a frame by frame. That whole movie is a textbook example. Like if I wanted to teach a course on predictive programming, I would use that. And again, anybody who denies the existence of predictive programming is ignorant, lazy, incapable of considering an idea outside of their box, limited, constrained, blinkered. They're dismissible as witnesses other than as, world stagers. And these labels are very important, and they're not meant to be disparaging. I don't think that because you figured out some things about how the mass media mind control works that you're smarter or anything like that. To me, this is not an intelligence test. It's a perception test. And we are born programmed. I have this chart. The programmers, the programmed, and the deprogrammed. Which are you? If you're in Trutherville or Woketown, you probably think you're deprogrammed because you left Normieville. But guess what? You're in a subset of Normieville. Everything that you would believe if you're in either box is actually contained within the Normieville universe. To be deprogrammed, one actually has to step out of these boxes, which is very difficult to do for the people who are really hardcore believers in it. Mark Twain said it's easier to fool a man than convince him he's been fooled, and I run into that every single day. But I'm not trying to convince people or anything like that. I'm not the deprogrammer. To me, I truly believe that the deprogramming has to happen at the level of the individual. You can't deprogram people. And this is where the red pillars get it wrong. And the agitators, the woke, the activists, all they're doing is they're dragging people deeper into the psywar. They're not waking people up. They're pulling them into a nightmare. All right, there's a lot of talk about this story. A woman in Brazil took a deceased man to the bank in an attempt to secure a loan. The woman wheeled a dead man into the bank and tried to get him to sign off a loan in her name while holding his head up. Footage shows the woman telling the man to grip a hold of his pen hard as he placed it between his fingers and encouraged him to sign a piece of paper at the bank branch. This is in Brazil. This is making the rounds. And I'm seeing a ton of comments here comparing this to Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, Weekend at Bernie's. Just like everyone's like, oh, this is the Biden administration. This is grotesque. It looks like a deep fake, but you've probably heard about it. Again, it's in my feed. Let's see what else we have. I'm catching up on your comments. Ryler05 says, does anyone remember Timothy McVeigh showing up at the Orlando shootings psyop? Interesting. Oh, yeah, I do. That would be Special Agent Paul Weisapal or something like that. Yes, yes. And that's a there's a few things about that particular individual, and I have a video on that one. Now, whether or not it's true is immaterial. We're examining psychological operations and hoaxes, and there does seem to be this thing where these individuals are repurposed. So here's Industry Hoax Revealed actually has a video on this. Is Timothy McVeigh really Paul Weisapal? You decide. Now, McVeigh was executed on 6/11/2001 at the age of 33, 90 days before 33-year-old Mohammed Atma led the hijackers on 9/11. And I think this is very significant. 6/11, 9/11. One of them is like upside down, the mirrors in a way. And this would imply something. The face of domestic terrorism, or McVeigh and 6/11, dying on that day, martyr's death 33, is kind of like an inverted OBL. OBL, Osama bin Laden, outside, out there, 9/11, external terrorist threat, and then the internal, domestic, 6 and 9. There seems to be some numerical code here, but Timothy McVeigh has a few other fascinating connections if we get into the numbers they attached to him, the 33-acre jail facility he was at, P.O. Box 33, a 33-year-old conductor played classical music during his electrocution. It's an insanely ridiculous story, but the Turner Diaries motivated him. And the Turner Diaries, interestingly, contained predictive programming for 9/11, including a bomb-laden plane going into the Pentagon. The author of the Turner Diaries, which, by the way, I think Turning Point USA from Charlie Kirk is referring to the Turner Diaries, which is about white nationalists nuking the world. It's kind of like Leave the World Behind, how it ends. The author of the Turner Diaries phone is off. Okay, thank you for letting me know. We appreciate the support. The author of the Turner Diaries was born on 9/11, 1933. And you'll notice that among the right wing, they have a fixation on a few Bible verses. The armor of God one, which is 6:11, and then there's the Timothy 6:11. Not Tim McVeigh 6:11, but Timothy from the Bible held by Tim Ballard in that movie Save the Children. So among the right patriot movement, there's a lot of references to 11:6 and 6:11, and it all, I think, is pertaining to some incoming white nationalist 9/11. Let me play this clip.
Here is a photograph taken just days before his disappearance. And here is what he might look like today.
Enter Special Agent Paul Weisapal. Very little is known of his background, but he was in charge of the staged event in Florida regarding the Orlando nightclub. As we learned.
Okay, so he was there with the Orlando club. Was that Wayne Sexton? Incredibly ridiculous psychological operation there. They're like, this nightclub supposedly has 700 people in it or something, or 300 people, but there's enough cars in the parking lot for maybe 15 people. There was all kinds of ways that you could see how that thing was staged. But this guy being a part of it, fascinating. Infinite Plane Radio.
Christ is King.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I know that some people will say that means that you want to kill Jews or something. They take that phrase "Christ is King" and they're like, now it's hate speech because Nick Fuentes uses it.
Christ is King.
Are you saying that you believe that? Is that an opinion, or are you bringing up the slogan?
I think that it's a shill. Like there was a Zerka. I think if you just keep shouting it out, like loud and proud, I think you might get more subscribers. Just be like, Christ is King. Just every single video that you have, just title it Christ is King.
No, look, I see that there's this controversy now about the phrase Christ is King, where among the far right influencers, they're just saying Christ is King. But then they're saying...
Are you scared to say it? Are you scared to say it?
I'm not a religious person. I mean, you go to...
Because you went through like 4 years of Freemasonry and you went to...
No, I've never been been a believer. Sorry. I mean,
Well, did you kiss the Bible in during your Freemason
look,
uh,
look. The Freemasons don't have the new,
lineage?
they don't have the New Testament.
Well, I think the Freemasons
Now,
are
let me
just
ask you a question.
sovereign
Wait, listen.
boys.
You keep jumping subjects. So, are you a churchgoer?
Christ is king.
What church do you go
Well, no,
to?
I said Christ is king as a joke, kind of.
So you don't.
But
So
I
you don't. Do
think
you mean it? Do you mean it or not? Is it a meme? Because I have a feeling it's a meme being thrown by the right wing. It's some kind of joke. Like you don't
it's
mean it, right?
it's like it's a super punch. It's like a super punch,
See,
like the one punch
so
guy.
so clear. You're not a churchgoer. You don't believe this stuff, but this is a meme you've picked up on Telegram or Nick
Whoa.
Fuentes. This is some incel thing. I've been
Everyone's saying it. Everyone's saying it.
everyone, as in the people in your echo chamber, but that's not everyone. Look, the world's bigger than Telegram and 4chan.
What are you talking about? Everyone. Now it's like political. Now there's no separation from church and state. Everyone's saying it. What are you talking about?
No, actually, not everyone
There's
is
no
saying it.
separation.
This is a let me bring this up here for people who've missed it. The Christ is King
What
controversy
what
is a
when
listen.
when
You
you
don't listen.
when you kiss?
Listen. Hold on. Washington
All right.
Times. Washington Times.
Sorry.
Christ is King controversy. Slogan, statement, or subtle slur. So here you are acting like you're innocent, just saying Christ is King, but you're actually bringing in here a slur, or rather something that's meant to be taken as a slur by the dog whistling telegram types who can't say what they really mean, so they hide behind dog whistles. So it's like they think they're cute or something. You come in here with this, and I just don't care about it. Like I'm not a churchgoer. It's not my thing. I don't have a king.
What are you talking? You're a Freemason. You kissed the
I
Bible.
don't know
Didn't you kiss it?
who are you?
You kissed it.
And are you aware that
You kissed it.
you're aware that the Freemasons don't have the New Testament in their lodge? It's
Did you stick your tongue out when you kissed it?
okay. I don't know. Did you stick your tongue out when you kissed your sister last time?
I'm talking about
Okay.
when you.
All right. Anyway, we've had enough. That guy's sounds like he's called before, but I'm going to go ahead and put him on block. We don't need these right-wing trolls. And look, I called it right. Christ is King. It's a white nationalist slogan. I mean, lately it's become some kind of one of these faux controversies. But anyway, this guy comes in here to troll me. Like, what is he talking about? Is that Jaren's friend? I think so. Sorry for my my rudely cutting off the call, but I had a feeling he wasn't leading us anywhere. Time waster, exactly. Time waster. All right, let's see. This is where it's at. Says, what did I miss? You missed another one of these dog whistlers. And look, I have no respect for dog whistlers. If you have an opinion, you have free speech. If you pretend like you don't have free speech, you're playing the victim. Oh, I can't say what I mean because I'm oppressed by the oppressors, and you know who you are oppressed by when you can't criticize them. No, you can't criticize them because you don't have any guts. Because you're reducing yourself to innuendo and childish memes. It's pathetic. It really is. And I think that's Jaren's friend. Everyone's saying that. Wisdom reigns. Yeah, Jaren's friend calls in a lot. I don't know the guy's name, but he used to call in slurs all the time. But like, what is this thing about me kissing a Bible? I don't know where he's even coming from with that. Yeah, this thing is, yeah, that call was a huge waste, but at the same time, I knew it was where he was coming from because I monitor the incel echo chambers. No, he didn't kiss his sister. I was just trolling him. I don't know. Let's continue. That was a strange distraction. Now let's put him on the map here. So if you're looking at the map, programmed, programmers, and deprogrammed, he would be probably far fringe here in Trutherville, but he's within the box. You can identify where someone is ideologically by what premises they accept, and right wing nationalism is well within the boundaries of the world stage. It's within the political horseshoe. Mango Penguin says Pepe is king, Christ is the son personified. Yeah, I'll go with that. Let's just move on. I'm not a religious person. I I believe that religion itself is some kind of controlled opposition to authentic spirituality. I'm interested in belief systems for sure, but not in people who claim that they have the answers, and we all need to conform to them. It's like I don't know why they would try to call here as though I'm somehow influenceable like that. Infinite Plane Radio.
All right. I didn't mean to be rude earlier.
No, it
I
wasn't. It
called
wasn't
again.
rude. You were being
Excuse me again.
disingenuous, pretending like you weren't calling to spread some kind of right white nationalist meme. So that's kind of why I was.
Oh,
You pretended like you didn't know.
all right.
You pretended like you didn't
All
know.
right. Agreed. I said Christ is King as kind of a joke, and I don't truly believe Christ like that slogan.
But why is it a joke?
But that
What? Wait. I'll
slogan,
give you 30 seconds here. Why is it funny? Like, why
all
should
right,
why should we be laughing right now? We should see laughing emojis in the
because
chat. Why
that
is it funny?
slogan, that's because religious. They say separation between church and state, but saying Christ is King and religion is more powerful than, uh, I guess, communism.
Okay, well,
Is that 30
well,
seconds?
I hope that made sense to somebody out there. I appreciate the clarification, and I have other people calling in, so have a great evening. Tell Jaron I said hi. Now, we know where this person is because he used to come into our Discord server and he was defending. This is a long story, but we don't really want to get into it. Anyway, I'm not going to take another call from that person, not for any other reason than they're disingenuous. I don't appreciate being gaslit. If I call someone out on a meme and they say it wasn't a meme, it's like, well, you're like a child with your hand in the cookie jar. Upside Down Guy says, who's Jaron? Good question. Hardly worth answering. Let's move on here. Richie from Boston says, has anyone taken their heads out of their smug asses long enough to realize we are in World War III and have been since COVID? It's fifth generational warfare and it's doing wonders to America. We're almost totally destroyed. It only needs a spark now. That's Richie from Boston, crying wolf again for the 333rd time about World War III. That's World War III is a meaningless term now. And I would agree that we're in a world war, but I think this is a world war that began before any of us were born. And it's worldview warfare. And we've already been conquered. We're born onto the world stage, didn't know it. So I call it World War Infinite. And there's no reason to point to any specific day or any calamity when it's going to get worse, because it's not. It's the good, bad news. It's good news, but you tell people and they act like it's terrible news. How can you say it's all fake? 777 says they act as if they don't want us to notice and they walk into that camp so their Pied Pipers can discredit us. Yeah, I try to keep the white nationalists out of my chat because they're part of they're going to go vote. They're going to go vote for Trump. And that's fine, whatever. My point being, they're basically political operatives without knowing it. They're useful stooges. And I don't really have we don't have a lot of space on the raft for people who are still believing that you can win this thing by voting for these puppets. Flatlander Montgomery says, war doesn't make sense when we allegedly have the power to utterly destroy each other. Yeah, that's the world stage. We're supposed to believe that each side can destroy the other, and so we all better get along in some way. When the truth of it is, no, it's all a ruse by the people on top, but they're holding the masses hostage. Sort of like when you see decoy tanks and decoy rocket launchers and decoy bases, decoy planes, inflatable everything on both sides. It's like, what's with all the decoys and dummies and inflatables? What's with the simulated casualties? What's with the hyper-realistic casualty dummies that breathe and bleed? Why do we need all this fakery on both sides? Is it because each side is faking out the other? No. It's because both, quote, sides on the movie screen are faking out the masses. All right, let's continue here. The unmediated mind says, I don't think that Christianity is a state religion at this time. No, I really don't think so either. I think the religion of this time is scientism, which you could look at scientism and heliocentrism, and it's, I guess, in a way, it's more or less, I think, templated off of the Abrahamic faiths. Like, I would argue that the flood myth of the day, global warming, climate change, is just that. It's Noah's myth. Noah's flood, rather, the myth about Noah's flood. They want us to believe in that. They want us to believe that if we're very wicked, God's going to flood us, so we should not be wicked. And you can understand why they would tell us that. But we won't believe it because in this new religion of scientism, we don't believe in God. So what did they do? They updated it. Now they call it the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. And like Noah from the Bible, its symbol is the dove. And they say, if you guys don't cut back on your carbon footprint, if you don't stop super spreading your carbon, if you don't stop using up all the dino juice, Gaia is going to kill us. Gaia is going to flood the world and bring about a quote arc storm. So they dressed up all the old myths with science, but it's still just as fake. Oh, wow. Upside Down Guy, appreciate it. Gifted 50 memberships. Lean Dion, Blue Wrench, FMGR, Salty Siren, Scott Rankin, Mossman USA, IFEP 73, Nicholas Pitts, Me and My Drone. We're handing out blue wrenches here. Rome, Jennifer Reeves, Baja Pickleball, T-Dog 135, All the World's a Stage, Cunife, received Blue Wrench Lodge membership gift. CMGZ 510, Geotolmy, Modmox Goods, Jamz, NDB, Flat Sabbath, Elmer's, World of Mysticism. Just Give Me 5 Minutes, Please, has received a membership gift. Blue Wrench Lodge Toe Cutter. Press X to start. All of you here, Art Bell, good to see you here, have received a membership courtesy of AB as well. Okay, this is a long list. This is just unbelievable. And this is greatly appreciated. As you know, this channel has been targeted for censorship. We have been really facing an uphill kind of thing, but we've kept it going this entire time thanks to people like Upside Down Guy. Yep, 50 Blue Wrench Lodge members, and what that means is this. It means that you have primary access or first access to a lot of stuff that I upload for members only streams, etc. All right, let's see what else we have here. Joined by Penguinati, awesome. Phones are open, but not for politicking. Not for politicking. If you're here trying to get votes, there's other places you could better spend your time. All right, let's move on. We're talking about the church stabbing. We're talking about all these stabby psyops. They happen in waves. You know, it's like waves of planes malfunctioning, waves of trains derailing, waves of boats, their power coming out, hitting bridges, waves of cranes falling, and then you have a bunch of stabbings. And these things are just coming in 3s and 4s and 5s. And anyway, this one here is the subject, the church stabbing, and the online reaction to it caused a protest. And this is mob justice. They haven't truly investigated it. They're being agitated, and they're suggesting that this is a problem, that X is a problem here. And I think this is basically what I've been saying. This is disease X. This is the pretext they will need to shut down the internet, to increasingly censor it. And we see them run like trials. Like, you remember what they did with New Zealand after the Christchurch shooting? The whole shout out to PewDiePie, 2 mosques, one of them was really fake. I mean, these events I'm talking about, I'm not suggesting these are real. We've broken them down ad nauseum. But as a result of the video that was live streamed, they shut down BitChute and 4chan and a few other sites. And that was kind of like, wait, they tested it there, saw how it worked. And they've been doing it more and more. So you had the guy shooting up the supermarket in Buffalo. They blamed it on Discord, and he streamed it on Twitch. And because of that, my Twitch channel was actually pulled. We had a Twitch channel going on for 3 years. They pulled it because of this online video. So we see what they're doing, and I think now they're working on doing it on a much bigger level. Tomino3 says, wave of plane movies and shows to go along with them. Yes. Yeah, we were looking at various examples of predictive programming lately and just having a discussion about what this all means. And so we have another example. The director of Civil War is talking about how his work has been described as prescient and predictive. And then Francis Ford Coppola, the director of The Godfather, came out with some statement about how his new film had a scene in it that caused them to scrap it because it was predictive of 9/11, and they just now re-released it. We've been coming across a lot of these where you can find directors who are making reference to their own prescience in a way. And I think it's kind of a subtle hint here that this director used the word predictive. And whether he knows it or not, that's exactly what it is. It's predictive because they're preparing us. It has a propaganda utility. The entertainment's a side effect of the propaganda. So I got a comment from John Taylor. He said, on unsubscribing, you are off your rocker. Flat Earth, are you promoting XY paper world of fiction? Now, at first I was like, okay, I'm not promoting any kind of a model here. I'm promoting skepticism and the idea that we shouldn't trust liars. You don't trust them with the news. You don't trust them with history. Are you going to trust them 100% with geography? Which is, I think, far more important. But that's fine. Unsub. But I'm like, well, who is this person? So I go to his account. John Taylor says, I've had enough of this nonsense. It's time to execute these bastards. So I don't mind that he unsubbed. I am trying to get away from people who want to chop the heads off of celebrities and public officials or send them to Guantanamo. All of these murder fantasies from the QAnon cult, yeah, we're trying to kind of move away from that. Who was that other guy? Justin Osmone, kind of looked like me, chopped his FBI dad's head off, and he said, it's time to kill the FBI. Like, we don't want that, I guess, element over here. All right, let me catch up on comments. Phones are open, 505-349-0420. Upside Down Guy says, Goldfinch is king. Oh, speaking of, we have less than a month to go until that first trial. Well, not trial, but the first pre-trial meeting. Should be interesting. We'll find out what kind of leverage I have as far as getting the court to serve Goldfinch via email. He's proved to be very elusive. But there is some progress. You know, we have Google's attorneys admitting that a crime was committed. And they're just saying that they're victims as much as I am, which isn't really true because their lawyers colluded, wittingly or not. And I looked into the history of the judge, who has a pretty good record with intellectual property rights and corruption within government. There's a few things in here I think that are relevant, but we'll see. But we'll have some updates. I may be going out to Redwood City, California in person if I have the gas money, or I might just do the Zoom conference thing. We'll see. Okay, let's move on. Mango Penguin says politics equals mind poison. Interesting. Well, I wouldn't vote for somebody with poor judgment. And poor judgment means they believe in moon landings and space stations and planet-killing asteroids and flood myths. So if they believe in those types of things, then they're so impaired, I couldn't give them the keys to the car. Like, no, you're not going to have my endorsement on this. Appreciate the super chat, Upside Down Guy, the evening's caller. He says, kiss me, moan yummy yum, allegedly. Tominoid says Lift is a plane heist movie, came out on 12/1. Masters of Air, World War II Hanks Spielberg production. Society of the Snow, Andy's plane crash cannibals. Okay, that's good. Mixes planes and cannibals. Cannibalism's been pretty big these last few months. Dune Part 2 has a couple of big aircraft explosions. See, remember, 119, that number has been consistently associated with things falling from the sky. Donnie Darko, planes falling from the sky. I've correlated it with Genesis 119, Tower of Babel falling. And I've been making this connection between the Twin Towers, the Titanic, and the ISS as representing the Tower of Babel. Well, on 119, the movie ISS comes out. about the space station falling, space station blowing up, war up in space, the Earth getting nuked, and they put these things out there to pack your imagination with the images that they will be conveying to you through the news, so you find it, quote, believable. And this is interesting because it relates to the Mandela effect. The way the Mandela effect works is the person saying, "Do you remember potato or potato?" Well, they ask you a question, and what they're actually doing when they bring up an alternate version is they're causing you to imagine it. Like imagine the Ford logo without the swirly. Which one is it? The one with the swirly or without? And when you imagine it, when you think of it, when you're recalling it, and then you're weighing these things together, what you're actually doing is you're conflating a an imagining with a recollection. So it's not really a memory. It's a prompted imagining, a prompted image, a prompted meme. So you imagine something at their prompt, sort of like with hypnosis. If you've ever done guided meditation or hypnosis where there's a script, you can let the hypnotist basically prompt your imagination, guide it, and steer you through it. And that's kind of what they're doing with the Mandela effect, is they're prompting alternate versions for your recollection and then getting you to confuse the two. Well, what the media does with all of these movies is they're putting these things into your imagination so that they're readily available because these are things you haven't seen yet. This is why you have people saying, "Oh, it's just like the movie Leave the World Behind," or after 9/11, it's just like Independence Day, the way the buildings fell. Why do you think people have movies as their frame of reference? Not just that these are convenient reference points, but because these were deliberately put into their frame of reference, into the realm of possibility. And the realm of possibility is simply what people will believe. And to get them to believe it, you have to saturate their imagination. Repetition. This is just propaganda. So the fact is, we have got every expectation now that there's going to be some kind of something having to do with, I think, the sky, the ISS, something about, not quite sure where it's going to go, but the ISS movie is about Russia and America going to war. Everyone gets nuked. Dewis in Paris says getting fed by the trolls. Yeah, usually it's the opposite. Usually I'm feeding the trolls. Now the trolls feeding me. Micro Luckbox has joined us. Thank you for joining over there on Twitch. Tominoid says Dune the movie is set in 10191. Okay, now Leave the World Behind is in zip code 11963, which contains 119, and it has planes falling, and it has a character they call Donnie Darko, which is about planes falling. So you have this layered referencing to planes falling in the script, but also the 1963 would pertain to the movie's release date of 11/22. So you have this JFK assassination date also encoded into it. Lean Dion says the spire that burnt and fell in Copenhagen had a Batman graphic on a wall nearby. Now that's interesting because the guy that ran into the Notre Dame spire or cathedral as the spire was burning, if you recall that story, he was recognized as a hero from the Bataclan shooting, the bat thing. So the Bataclan guy rescued the crown of thorns from Notre Dame. And then 5 years later to the day, practically, the Copenhagen spire burns. And they've compared the two. It's like within a day of the anniversary. And they had to rescue priceless relics while it was burning. Same story. They repeated it. But the bat reference is also interesting because the bat has been a tremendous symbol. I mean, today is Bat Appreciation Day, by the way. And the bat is, in the Batman movies, it's a symbol of, in a way they use it as a phoenix, the reset symbol. You know, you have the phoenix, like the dove is sort of a phoenix. The flood comes, the dove shows up, flood's over, reset. Hunger Games used the Mockingjay. The movie The Crow has the crow, the dying resurrecting symbol. You can find many examples of the phoenix or birds that represent the American eagle is a phoenix. It has to do with America burning, part of the sacrifice of the West, this whole meta narrative. But the bat, the burning bat, has been a reoccurring symbol through all of Christopher Nolan's work. and this is all very significant. Dark Knight Rising, the bat-shaped hole in the building looks very 9/11y, but he also had the bat sculpture burning. This is Christopher Nolan, and this is interesting because in Dark Knight Rises, there's a character who says, "I don't need a mask," and Batman's like, "It's not for you. It's to protect the people you love." So he's quoting Fauci from 8 years in the future, and then he gives the guy a spiked ball that looks like a COVID ball, and he says, "Count to 5 and throw this." So he counts to 5 and he throws it, and it blows up as a smoke screen, but it blows up as a mushroom cloud. The significance here, count to 5 after the mask thing. So I'm thinking 2020, count to 5, 5 years later, mushroom cloud. Now Christopher Nolan, 13 years later, releases Oppenheimer. So mushroom cloud foreshadowing even his future movie. And also we have Fallout, which just started on Amazon, directed by Jonathan Nolan. Elephant Tusk says, Tim, have you read the book Sphere or watched the movie? The artifact reflects back their deepest fears and manifests them in reality. I'll have to check it out. That sounds pretty much like what the media does. And they have to have a number of different things, scenarios, because everyone's scared of something else. They know what motivates everybody. Did you know that Netflix purchased all of your direct messaging in Facebook, all of your private messages, all the conversations you had on Facebook, whoever you're talking to, whatever needs you expressed, whatever opinions that you maybe didn't want to state publicly, whatever it is, Netflix has it. So they are deep in our minds. Here for Now says, the scene in Moonraker only makes sense if Dolly has braces. So either the Mandela effect is real or they put out two versions. Well, here's the thing about this. You can be convinced that pandas are fake if you only look at 5 videos where they look fake, and you exclude every other bit of information, every video, every book, everything else that would convince you they were real. There's a selectivity here. So the Mandela effect relies on you being selective. Do you remember her with braces? And you look it up and you see this one scene. Nobody ever says, watch the whole movie, and does it make sense for her to have braces in all the other scenes? And if you look throughout the rest of the movie, no braces. So when you say, I remember she had braces, did you remember it with 30 different scenes or only that one scene? So they're making a judgment on a single scene. And so there's explanations for it. And what's more, Brian Staveley admittedly has never watched Moonraker. I mean, you ought to have a Mandela Effect conference and watch all these movies that you all talk about. Maybe you can, from your own memories, you can hash out the script from that Sinbad Genie movie, which was so good. So good you could produce it yourselves. The Mandela affected who remember a movie that never happened but made it to primetime TV could produce it and maybe get it on primetime. But again, if you haven't watched the whole movie Moonraker, then you have no business saying Dolly didn't have braces because you're judging it off of one scene where it would have made sense for her to have it, but you're excluding the rest of it. Their memories are shallow. They're fake memories. Another one. Oh, everybody remembers Timmy fell down the well. How did they get him out? A crane? A rope? How did they get him out? Nobody knows. Did they leave him in there? It's a parlor trick. The Mandela effect is based on limiting options, narrowing your range of choices, and creating ambiguity through gaslighting. Yeah, the Mandela effect interrogator is gaslighting you, and it's called retroactive interference when they cause you to remember something and ask you a question, and the remembering could be prompted. They are interfering with your recollection, and then your false memory gets filed with the real memory. And this is understood by marketers, by those who do predictive programming. They understand how our minds work. That's why they want to read your direct messaging. They know how our minds work. They know how to program us because we are hackable animals, as they have been saying at the WEF. And we're hackable animals without any hardware installed. That was Yuval Harari's blistering warning at Davos. He says, we humans should get used to the idea that we are no longer mysterious souls. We are now hackable animals. Now that sounds
Whatever you do.
now that sounds ominous. Like, oh no, if we give these guys too much power, they're going to hack us soon. It's like, no, you've already been hacked.
Is hacking human beings. To hack human beings, you need a lot of biological knowledge, a lot of computing power, and especially a lot of data. If you have enough data about me and enough computing power and biological knowledge, you can hack my body, my brain, my life. You can reach a point when you know me better than I know myself. And once you reach that point, and we are very close to that point, then democracy, the free market as we have, and actually all political systems, also authoritarian regimes, we have no idea what happens once you pass that point.
Okay, now, we do know. We're living it. We passed this point a long time ago. They're talking about this hypothetical future. No. Everything's going to be deep faked. We're completely programmed and hacked. And no. They've already done this. We're living it.